What's up everyone, welcome back to Let's Play Bayonetta. Something I failed to mention last time, this angel arm that I'm carrying around, this chainsaw angel weapon, is unique in that I believe it's the only one you can get as a result of a torture attack. If you go back and watch the last episode towards the end, you'll notice that when I'm ascending the tower, I do a torture attack on a harmony, and I think Bayonetta just pulls the chainsaw out of hammer space. So that's where this is from, and it does quite a lot of damage. I'm not too certain about what I used up the rest of the charge on. That must have been last episode. I said stating the complete obvious. This is... pretty sure that's one of the longest torture attacks in the game. So now we have another one of the little witch statue puzzles. And oh wow, I guess I took way more damage in, what, the one hit that I took than I thought. So we just come down here, hit the button, dodge, and yeah. All of these witch time puzzles are pretty simple. Now, instead of going up the path like you would expect, there is, you guessed it, hidden Alpine portal. And let's see. By now I've completely forgotten what this Alpine is, so we're about to be surprised together. Oh, it's an... oh, okay, I remember this one. So, since this is another limited kicks and punches one, you know what the plan is. Oh, right. Apparently it means getting rocked by Grace and Glory. So there's a bit less room for error in this one in terms of the damage you can take. Or rather, how reckless you can be. The damage you can take doesn't really change that much because you have bubbles of health. And it doesn't matter how hard the enemy hits, it's still going to take one hit worth of the bubble. Wow, that was a really bad explanation. Any hit that you take is one bubble. And they give you a little bit of leeway in terms of the time between attacks before another hit can take a bubble of health away. Like, you can't just get chain comboed and lose all your life that way. Anyway. So there's a little bit less room for error in this one, but the strategy remains exactly the same, just a bit more emphasis on not dying. We're still going to rely pretty much entirely on using Shiraba's Lie Jutsu to circumvent the limitation here, and which time to buy time to charge it up. If I remember correctly, there's no limited kicks and punches Alfheim in the game where that strategy doesn't work flawlessly. You can be a bit more aggressive and do those quicker if you do the Durga combos, but it's just so easy to abuse Shiraba for those. That, and by this point, I don't have Durga yet anyway. I think I get the last LP shard for that momentarily here. Sometime up this snake path. I think there's a chest. It warrants an explanation anyway, though. Durga are a set of two claw weapons. I might have mentioned this before when I was fighting Grace and Glory, because they dropped the angel alarm that's very similar to Durga. And they have a lightning mode and a charge mode. And I'll go more into detail about Durga once I actually get them and I start using those. But the gist of it is that their charge attacks do more damage once you've landed a certain number of hits in a combo. And they're pretty devastating hits, too. Or, I mean, the charge modifier is pretty devastating. So if you do, like, a punch, 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 kick, kick, kick combo, and charge Durga on the third punch, you wind up doing all the damage from those 6 hits, plus the Wicked Weave, plus the Durga attack, which that alone is huge damage. And because it doesn't have the long charge-up time that Shiraba's Lie Jutsu has, it allows you to be a lot more mobile while you're fighting. Plus, you can dodge offset around. But again, Shiraba's just so damn easy. Oh, right. Oh, this notebook. Witch Graves Within the City. In terms of story implications, this is probably one of the most important that we read up to this point. Because it talks about the sarcophagi that the witches are buried in, and how the witches would place powerful seals upon them to keep them shut no matter what. And the notebook entry mentions that after the witch hunts, people tried to blow the coffins open and failed. So, does a huge, impregnable stone coffin sealed by magic sound familiar? Perhaps like the one that Bayonetta was in when she was taking her 500-year-long nap at the bottom of a lake? That notebook also alludes to the war that broke out between the sages and the witches just prior to the witch hunts. And it goes on to say that there's a Lumen Sage, the Lumen Sage Seal of the Sun, I think it's called. It was placed upon the coffin so that the witches, if the witches somehow managed to return to life or something, they wouldn't be able to break that Lumen Sage seal. So they would be interred, trapped in their tombs forever. There's also a line that's just dripping with foreshadowing at the end. I'm just going to read it from my little sticky note here. Finally, there are rumors that somewhere in Vigrid, research is underway to extract the spirit energy from departed witches. It seems that the fate of the Umbra Witch and the Lumen Sage is yet to be truly decided. And it is going to be, I think, 5 or 6 chapters from now before we even get into what that's foreshadowing. So that's the long setup. Inspired is another annoying flying enemy, though they do give me the courtesy of dropping once they take some damage. There we go. You see that I'm desperately to show the whip being useful in any capacity, and it does not happen. The whip has, that I remember, one very, very specific use, and then I know for a fact that when I've recorded at this time up to chapter 11, and that's the only time I've used the whip. If there are any Alfheim challenges, like the ones I'm going to be using it for, after chapter 11, then yeah, that's the only time I'm really going to be using it. So much health on this bastard. Oh, there we go. Yay, now we get to see Malphus and his crazy-ass googly eyes again. I always kind of hope in the back of my mind that they would just totally break the flow of the game, the flow and the tone. When he has the Inspired's jaw sticking out of his beak, I always hope that they just have him do something completely ridiculous, like start doing the to be or not to be soliloquy, but instead of holding a skull in hands, he's holding a whole fucking mouth open with his beak. To be or not to be? That is the question. Something like that would just be amazing. Now we can visit Rodan just to get the Durga Claws real quick. I don't use them at any point in this episode. Don't worry though, they're not going to be like the whip. They are actually going to be useful.
But no need to pity me. I was bored anyways. Let me go whip some things into shape for you.
Oh, I thought the whip something in a shape line was specific to when he crafts the whip. I thought it was actually supposed to be a pun. Apparently it's just from a random pool of phrases he can spout.
This took a bit of pounding to shape, but the workmanship's solid. Now, go put this thing to good use.
Poor hiccups. Poor neglected whip. Let's see. I think on one of these ledges is a notebook, and on another ledge is either a moon pearl or a witch heart. So which one is which? Wow, that phrase has a lot of potential for really bad puns given the subject matter of the game. Which is which? Uh-huh, uh-huh. Oh god, you know what? I could use that pun when I'm fighting a certain enemy. Too bad. Oh man. I almost want to go and re-record certain things so I can use that pun. Anyway, this is another notebook. Yep. That's it. This one's pretty fluffy. It's just Antonio spouting exposition about Rodan and his bar. Nothing we don't already know, except that the colloquial term for the gates of hell is the dump. It makes up for not being informative by being written in this really peculiar kind of neo-noir style that's pretty nice, actually. Also, I'm really fond of flowery prose, and that's present to varying degrees in all of Antonio's notebooks, but there is one particular line from this one that I adore. They thirst for the uproar only the occult can inspire. Oh, and there's also a Star Wars reference in there. He refers to the dump as a wretched hive of scum and villainy. Okay, since I don't have too much else to talk about here, I keep talking about how I want to bring up the voice actors, I'll just go ahead and do that now, because this is being, again, this is temporary post-commentary for this chapter only, and I've recorded up till, like I said, chapter 10 or 11 or so, and I know I haven't talked about the voice actors yet in any of those episodes, so let me just go ahead and do that. Bayonetta, I don't remember if I mentioned, is voiced by Helena Taylor, and I looked through her IMDb a while back, and she mostly does TV and film, and nothing that that stands out to me in particular. This is the obvious next one would be Luca, who's voiced by, if you don't recognize him, Yuri Lowenthal, who is like Nolan North levels of prolific. Maybe not in video games in particular. He is in a lot of games, but he is especially prolific in anime. Pretty much rivaling Johnny Young Bosch. He voices a guard in Chapter 2, another one in Chapter 6 or 7. And then, of course, he's also the voice for Luca. Also, I think he might be the voice for either Fortitudo or the boss, the second boss, but I'm not entirely certain about that. After him, let's see. The guy who does Rodan's voice is also in so much stuff, and it kills me that I can't remember his name. Oh god. Dave Venoy, I think it's pronounced. He is in a lot of stuff, but he just kind of recently exploded in popularity because he voices the main character Lee in Telltale's The Walking Dead.
The only ones meddling are your hapless minions. This will be taken care of in the manner I see fit. Your assistance is not required. I suppose coming here has given you a second wind. Feeling better, Bayonetta?
Who are you? And don't you dare say my long-lost sister.
Sister, you've quite the active imagination. You and I once fought for the jewel upon the crown of the Umbra throne. And now that you've returned, my sleeping beauty, it is time to finish that fight. No time for daydreaming.
Liam O'Brien's also in this. Liam O'Brien, very prolific. He does a voice for a character we haven't been formally introduced to yet. He's the disembodied voice who keeps talking to Bayonetta. You know, my dear sweet child, surrender to the plasm. Also, I stumbled upon this right before I sat down to record. Gray DeLille, who voices Jean, who we'll be seeing here in a moment, is pretty prolific herself, and she does a lot of cartoons, one of which is she has a bunch of minor roles on a show that I am completely head over heels for. She does a bunch of minor characters on Gravity Falls. Like, I think she does the fat kid who gets eaten by the Summerween trickster, and off the top of my head, I can't remember the other ones right now. Oh god, the choreography for these Jean encounters is so ludicrous and elaborate. I could watch this stuff like 1,000 times. I've always found it interesting that they decided to make Jean a witch instead of Sage, given her status as Bayonetta's foil in almost every way. Plus, there's the really heavy themes of duality and reciprocity at play in the game. You know, angels and demons, sages versus witches, Paradiso versus Inferno, the right and the left eyes of the world, witch time versus light speed, sun and moon, and so on and so forth. And Jean possesses the inverse of almost all of Bayonetta's qualities, like even personality-wise, except the ones pertaining to their clan, which is what makes it a little bit weird. Then again, maybe the choice was made because giving Jean access to the same tools allows the player to feel more triumphant in overcoming her, because you're given access to the same tools and therefore the playing field is perceived to be even, I guess? Also, there's a very specific reason why Jean is a witch and not a sage that pertains to the whole eyes of the world and Bayonetta's amnesia coming up later, but I won't spoil that, obviously. There is context given, but there's I still think that they could have made Jean a sage instead, and it would have been a little bit more thematically coherent, I guess would be one way to phrase it. It would fall more in line with the themes of the game.
What's the matter, sweetie? Afraid of something, are you?
Afraid? Me?
This is a waste of my time. You're still not ready.
So, at some point in time, Nightwolf paid a visit to Jeanne to teach her to unlock her animality. And that triggered Bayonetta's memory, so now seeing Jeanne transform into first a lynx, and then a swarm of bats, then a crow, now triggered
Oh my.
Bayonetta's ability to transform into a panther, and we can buy the crow and the bat within from Rodan, which we will definitely be doing. So I've talked a bit about this before, but it's a cool thing to bring up again. When you have Panther form activated, you just double tap the right trigger to activate it. You can run around so quickly that the game doesn't stream the data in for the next area quickly enough. If you're progressing forward, obviously. To give you an idea of just how quickly you move during Panther form, or while you're in Panther form. And what the Crow Within does is you can double tap it in the air and it will let you glide a little bit. And the Bat Within just adds a little bit of extra leeway onto activating Witch Time. If you dodge almost immediately after you're hit, the damage that you took from the hit goes away and you activate Witch Time. So now you have your normal Witch Time window plus, shortly after taking a hit. So it's incredibly handy, especially if your reactions are you find yourself consistently reacting just a hair too slow. So that does it for Chapter 5. In a moment here, I'm just going to queue up the Alfheim challenge that I was talking about that I accidentally skipped over before. And then we will end this episode. This one is much trickier than the 22nd one. The 22nd one, you can kind of just get a couple bounces in off the heads of the enemies, and it's fine, they'll stay positioned the way you want. This one, you really have to manipulate them unless you're using the cheap Kolshidra strategy here. Which is to do this. You just pull them to you, and after that, they appear in the perfect spot next to you where you can just jump off of them. And I had experimented so long trying not to do it this way, doing all sorts of stuff. Like doing weird mid-air Sharaba charge cancels and stuff. Where I would charge Sharaba up mid-air, have that hanging animation, cancel it with gunfire and go right back into it to try to do this. And it just proved to be too much of a pain in the ass. So this is the really cheap way to do this Alfheim challenge. The cool thing about the whip is obviously that you can pull enemies towards you, or you can use it kind of like a grappling hook to launch Bayonetta towards enemies. But we are rapidly running out of time on this file, so now I can finish up doing post-commentaries for a while. I don't have that much of an aversion to them, I preferred the more natural reactions to things. Anyway, all that's wrapping up now with this chapter. Hopefully I don't run into any major issues down the line that force me to change up my normal commentary style. Thanks for watching again, everyone. Be sure to rate, comment, favorite, subscribe, all the good stuff that helps me out. Thanks for watching, everyone. Take it easy. Have a good one.